If you're trying to break into data analytics right now and it feels like you're doing everything right but still getting nowhere, you're not imagining things. You can learn SQL, build projects, stack certifications, and still keep getting ignored because the market is not rewarding the same kind of candidate it was a few years ago. And that's the real problem. Most aspiring analysts are still preparing for the old version of the job, while companies have quietly shifted onto something else entirely. So in this video, I'm going to break down what actually changed and the four layers of what I call the new era data analyst. What separates those who are getting interviews and those who are getting ghosted? If you're a subscriber here, welcome back. But if this is your first time here, I'm Kedeisha, and 6 years ago, I was delivering pizzas and Amazon packages for $8 an hour. And today, I am running a community of over 80,000 current and aspiring data professionals, and I've helped thousands of other career changers break into data analytics without going back to school and wasting money on courses that just don't work. And if you ever want to work with me to land your first role in data analytics, click the link in the description. All right, so let's get into it. Layer one. Business thinking and domain expertise. Here's what no one tells you when you first get into data analytics. You can learn SQL, build all the dashboards, and pass every technical screen, and you will still get passed over for someone with half of your skills because that person understands the business and you're just analyzing it. And that is the gap. The gap that most people never close because they don't even know it exists. The market stopped paying for outputs and started paying for judgment. A report tells a hiring manager you can pull numbers, but judgment tells them how you know what to do with them. The difference is this: anyone can tell you that customer retention dropped 12%, but the analyst who gets hired and promoted are the ones who can tell you whether it's a pricing problem or an onboarding problem or a competitor problem, and then tells you what you should do about it. And the way you can build business thinking these days is not going back to school. Don't even think about going to get your MBA at one of these 100K programs like I did. I'll save you the time and money. You can create your own MBA in a specific order that actually works. It starts with business models. You need to understand how different types of companies make money because that determines what they measure, what they fix, and what they reward. A SaaS company, for example, lives and dies on monthly recurring revenue and churn rates. A logistic company can run on on-route efficiency and cost per delivery. A hospital system tracks patient volume, reimbursement rates, and bed utilization. If you don't know how the company makes money, your analysis will never connect to what leadership actually cares about. It'll always just feel like a generic report and not an answer. From there, pick a domain and go deep. Not a little bit of everything, one industry where you learn the language, learn the metrics, and the problems. Cold. Healthcare, e-commerce, whatever it is. This specificity is what makes your analysis sharp instead of generic. And it's what's going to separate your resume from the pile of people who learned all the same tools from all the same courses. Then spend real time studying how decisions are actually made. You can read earnings reports, call transcripts, even reading through Harvard Business Review case studies. Pay very close attention to how marketing, finance, and operations leaders make trade-offs with incomplete information. This is how you build judgment, and judgment is the thing that separates senior level thinking from entry level thinking. And the market is already rewarding this. Cisco surveyed over 600 large companies, and the number one skill gap that they identified in tech workers was not SQL or Python, it was business acumen. 42% said that was their biggest hole. The supply of people who could actually use tools is massive. You can find them everywhere, but the supply of people who understand the business almost non-existent, and this is your opening. Because a certificate just tells a manager you sat through a class. A project rooted in business thinking tells them you can do the work. One of these gets you hired, and it's not the certificate. Now here's what I need career changers especially to hear. If you're coming from another industry, doesn't matter what it is, you already have something that most bootcamp graduates or college graduates do not have. You have domain expertise. You have years of experience understanding how a business operates. That's not a weakness, that is your unfair advantage. So you don't need to hide your past career anymore. You need to translate it. So when a nurse learns data analytics and targets healthcare companies, they're not competing with 500 generic applicants. They are competing with maybe 5 people who have both domain expertise and the data skills. And in that pool, your odds are dramatically better. Now, having the business knowledge is one thing. Being able to communicate it is a completely different skill, and that's layer number 2. Advanced data storytelling. Data by itself does not tell stories. You do. Miro Kazakov, an lecturer at MIT, said it in a way I have never forgotten. If you want people to make the right decisions with data, you have to get it in their head in a way they understand. Throughout human history, the way to do that has been with stories. That is the job. Not just making a chart, but making the decision obvious. So in this new job market, everyone can pull numbers. Everyone can spin up a chart. The advantage is not the visual itself, it is the person standing behind it who can tell you what it means and what to do next. That is the job. But the biggest unlock in storytelling is understanding that the story has to come before the slide deck or the dashboard, before you even open Tableau or Power BI. Before you touch any tool, you have to know what you're saying first. Most analysts just do it backwards, which is why most dashboards are just cluttered messes and just confusing. The story is an afterthought. So stop leading with the data and start leading with the decision. Before you build any chart, ask yourself, what decision does it support? And if you can't answer that, you're just not ready to present it. And here's a tactical move to make this all click. Wireframe before you build anything. You grab a piece of paper or a whiteboard and sketch out what you want the audience to see, what order, and what the takeaway for each section would be. This is a hidden unlock that most people just skip. When you wireframe first, you are forcing yourself to make a story before you even think about design. That is how you make storytelling deliberate and not just an accidental afterthought, especially when you're not a creative person by nature. This unlock will help you whether you're creative or not. And then practice relentlessly. What I like to do and also teach my students to do is just take awful looking or just ugly dashboards and visuals on the internet and then recreate them yourself. Then take what you have and force yourself to explain a key insight in about 3 sentences or less. If you can't do that, you still don't understand the insight well enough yet. This is the drill, and this is what separates someone who can just produce generic analysis from someone who can drive actual decisions. Right now, most dashboards are overcrowded, confusing, and just forgettable. They show everything and say nothing. Executives don't want more data, they want clarity. They want someone who can walk in with a point of view, not just a pivot table. When you develop this skill, you earn a seat at the table, not because you have the best charts and know the most skills, but because you make the next decision obvious. That is a shift from being just a data person to being a strategic voice in the office. In the new era, data storytelling is not a soft skill, it is a power skill. Quick pause. Now, if you want to land your first job in data analytics and avoid the lengthy mistakes that I did, click the link in the pinned comment where you can find the exact steps that my students use to land their job in data analytics without going back to school. All right, now let's get back to it. All right, now layer 3, and I know what you're thinking. Kedeisha, you have to talk about AI. So let's talk about it. Most people are using AI completely wrong. And I'm not talking about people who are scared of AI. I'm talking about the overconfident people who think that they're ahead of the game because they're using ChatGPT for everything. They use it to skip thinking though. They use it to generate entire analyses that they did not actually reason through themselves. They use it to write code that they don't even understand. They use it too early in the process before they even define the problem. And then they wonder why they feel weaker instead of stronger. Here's the thing that people are missing with AI. If you don't know how to think through a problem, AI is not going to fix that. It is going to make you worse at it faster because AI amplifies whatever you bring to the table. And if you ain't bringing nothing, what do you expect? If you're bringing sharp thinking, AI makes you dangerous. If you're bringing lazy thinking, AI makes you confidently wrong at scale. AI is not the threat. Misusing AI is the threat. And the hidden opportunity is not letting it replace your brain. You're using it to accelerate your thinking after you have already done the hard work. Here's a rule I want you to think about. AI should go in the middle, not in the beginning. Most people reach for it first, but that is the mistake. Before you even touch any AI tool, you need to know exactly what question you're answering, what business decision it supports, and what a good answer actually looks like. If you are unclear on any of that, AI is not going to save you. It's going to produce something that sounds confident but completely off. Once you know the problem, do primary thinking yourself. Form a hypothesis. Build your initial argument. You can sketch the structure of your analysis. This is the part most people skip because it's uncomfortable. It is slower and it requires you to sit with uncertainty for a few minutes instead of just outsourcing it completely to AI. But this is where your actual value gets built. Now you bring in AI. Use it to accelerate your research, pressure test your ideas, generate alternatives that you might have missed, and speed up the low value execution tasks like formatting, cleaning, and documentation. This is where AI actually earns its place, not as a thinker, but as an accelerator. You are the strategist, AI is the assistant, and then validate everything before it leaves your hands. AI outputs are only as strong as the thinking behind the prompt. Check the logic, question the assumptions, and make sure the output actually makes sense for the business context. An AI can write a perfectly structured paragraph that is completely wrong. You are the last line of defense, so act like it. Alright, so let me be direct with you. If you are using AI to do all your thinking, you are not becoming more efficient, you are becoming more dependent. And I'm not saying that to scare you, the research also says it. Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon studied 319 knowledge workers and found that the more confident someone was in AI, the less critical thinking they actually used. Not slightly slightly less, significantly less. And over time, they got weaker, not stronger. Now, think about what that means for you. If you're outsourcing AI for pretty much everything, you are not building the analytical muscle that hiring managers are testing for in interviews. You are reducing it. And it's not just your skills that suffer, the results suffer too. Even Elon Musk learned this the hard way. The man who runs the most automated factory on the planet. Excessive automation at Tesla was a mistake. Humans are underrated. So if this is true at Tesla, it is definitely true for you. I have reviewed so many portfolios and resumes from aspiring analysts, and I can spot an AI generated work in seconds. Every project reads the same, generic phrasing, same service level insights, same structure. And this is exactly what I meant earlier about AI amplifying lazy thinking. These resumes and portfolios aren't bad because the person lacks skills. They're bad because a person outsourced their entire judgment to some machine that has none. And hiring managers are catching on fast. The analysts who use AI well will gain massive leverage, but the analysts who use AI lazily will become generic, replaceable, and forgettable. The difference is not whether you use it, it is how you use it, and what you bring to the table before you even turn it on. Okay, so layer 4. This is the one that almost nobody talks about, and it's the reason why some analysts hit a ceiling that they cannot explain. Here's the thing that separates analysts who are getting promoted and hired from everyone else. It's not some advanced tool, it's not some dashboard, it's that they know how to walk into a messy, ambiguous problem with no clean data set, no clear brief, and no step-by-step instructions, and still come out on the other side with a recommendation that actually moves the business. Most analysts never build that muscle because they spend all their time in tools and none of it learning how to think. And then they wonder why they keep getting looked over. Nobody's paying you to just make pivot tables. They are paying you to help them make better decisions under pressure. Most people are entering a problem already thinking about the answer. They want to get to the data set fast, and that urgency is exactly what makes their analysis so shallow. So the way you build this skill is by giving yourself a system, not theory, a repeatable process that you can use every single time you hit a messy problem. So your first move is never just opening the data and hoping something jumps out. The analysts I've seen grow the fastest are the ones who stop exploring and start diagnosing. And there are 3 frameworks that will change how you approach every problem from here on out. The first is the 5 whys. Most analysts look at a problem and stop at the first answer. Churn is up. Okay, so what do you do with that? Nothing, because you don't actually look into why yet. The 5 whys force you to keep asking until you hit something that you can actually fix. Customer churn is up. Why? Because renewal rates dropped. Why? Because customers are not using the product after a month or two. Why? Because onboarding is too complicated. Why? Because nobody mapped the user journey after the initial signup. Now you have the root cause, and now you can build a recommendation. That chain is worth more than any dashboard you can ever build. Root cause analysis takes the same instinct and makes it even more rigorous. So instead of just asking why in a straight line, you map out all the possible causes of the problem and categorize them, and then use data to eliminate the ones that don't hold up. Think like a detective. You're not guessing, you're systematically ruling things out until the real culprit is left standing. This is the kind of thinking that separates a junior analyst from someone who gets promoted within a year, because it shows you understand that data does not give you answers, it helps you test hypotheses. And then there is the MAIC. My favorite. Define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. This is the one that comes from Six Sigma and is one of the most complete out of the 3 because it doesn't just help you find the problem, it gives you structure for fixing it and making sure it does not come back. Define the problem, measure exactly what's happening, analyze why, improve the process, and control to hold the gain. If in an interview you walk a hiring manager through a project using the MAIC structure, you immediately sound like someone who has done this on the job because you have a system and most candidates do not. So start with the 5 whys on your next project, apply it once, and you will never go back to just exploring blindly. Then find the root cause, and you can also explore DMAIC as and get more comfortable. The point is not to memorize these 3 frameworks, and there's plenty of other ones as well. The point is to stop wandering through data and start arriving with a system. So this year, advanced problem solving is the real moat. Because tools get copied, charts get copied, even prompts can get copied, but deep thinking does not. All right, so let's bring this all together. Look, the data analytics field is not dying. It is evolving, and the evolution rewards people who adapt, not folks who keep doing what worked 3 to 4 years ago. You are not just learning to get a job, you are learning to become valuable, and valuable people don't chase opportunities, opportunities chase them. If you got value from this video, subscribe, because we're going to go deep into each of these layers in upcoming videos. I'll see you in the next one.